the signal in the dark. The mining ship Perseverance drifted silently through the Kuiper Belt, its floodlights casting long beams into the void, illuminating frozen rocks and ancient ice as they tumbled through the eternal dark. From the bridge, Captain James Miller sipped from his gravity mug, the soft hum of the ship's systems providing the only soundtrack to another day in deep space. Just another rock, just another payday, just another quiet shift light years away from Earth. Another pile of platinum coming in, muttered Miller, watching the mineral report flicker on screen. Core, transfer it to Bay 3. Acknowledge, replied Core, the ship's neutral-toned AI. Extraction complete. Estimated yield 6.2 metric tons. Tom Ward, the ship's engineer, snored softly at his console, a smudge of grease across his cheek and a half-eaten protein bar floating near his head in the zero gravity. Linda Marshall, the medical officer, was cross-checking vitals more out of habit than necessity. Robert Hayes, the first officer and a former military man, stood near the viewport with arms crossed, eyes on the stars. It was peaceful, routine, safe. Until it wasn't. A sharp, irregular beep broke the calm. Tom blinked awake, nearly banging his head on the console. What the hell was that? Core, Miller said, already rising report. Unknown signal detected, the AI responded, bringing up a waveform on the central holoscreen. Artificial origin confirmed, no match in Earthcom's database. Repeating patterns suggest distress call. Hayes stepped forward, location. Approximately 6.2 hours away at maximum burn. Linda looked up. That's outside our patrol range. We're miners, not search and rescue. We're also human. Hayes countered, jaw tightening. Someone out there is screaming for help. It could be a trap, Linda said, her voice low. There have been stories, pirates broadcasting fake distress calls, luring in easy targets. Tom leaned forward, adjusting the gain on the signal. If it is a trap, it's a damn good one. Whoever made this didn't just slap together static and hope we bite. This thing's got embedded emergency protocols, rare ones pirates wouldn't know. Miller narrowed his eyes at the waveform, watching the loop again and again. There was something in the pattern, a kind of rhythm. Not language, but emotion. It didn't matter what species sent it. Anyone could hear the fear. Core played it aloud. The sound that echoed through the bridge was haunting pulses in tones low and desperate. Not music, not noise. It was pleading. I don't like it, Linda muttered. I don't either, Miller said. But that doesn't mean we ignore it. He turned to face his crew, all of whom were now wide awake. Let's vote, he said. We're not a military vessel. We're not obligated. But if we're the only ones close enough to help, then this isn't about orders. It's about who we are. He looked at each of them, eyes hard but open. All in favor of investigating the signal, raise your hand. Hayes' hand shot up first, unsurprisingly. Tom raised his a second later, rubbing his eyes. Linda hesitated, then slowly lifted hers despite herself. Unanimous, Miller said, nodding. Course set a course. Max burn. Course plotted. ETA 6 hours. Miller took one last look out the main viewport toward the pinpoint in space where the signal pulsed like a heartbeat. Tom, get the engines hot. Linda prepped the med bay just in case. Hayes, run a diagnostic on the mining lasers. They're not weapons, but if we need to carve something open or make a point, I want them ready. The Perseverance's engines began to glow, blue ion trails flaring to life as the ship shifted course and surged forward. The silence that returned wasn't the same as before. It was charged now with tension, with purpose, with something ancient and uniquely human, the decision to help. Hayes broke the quiet. You really think this is it? Miller glanced at him. First contact. Miller didn't answer for a moment. He stared at the star field ahead, unchanging, eternal, and yet somehow watching. I think he said that whatever we find out there, it's not going to be just another rock. Fire in the void. 6 hours had never passed more slowly. The Perseverance hurtled through space, its engines blazing like miniature suns as the mining vessel pushed toward the source of the unknown signal. Captain Miller hadn't left the bridge. He sat with his coffee, gone cold eyes locked on the forward display, counting seconds, tracing data, waiting for a glimpse of something, anything that would explain why they were flying into the dark. Then Core's voice sliced through the tension. Contact in 5 minutes. Visual range achieved, displaying now. The main screen flickered to life. Gasps echoed across the bridge. 2 ships hung suspended against a starfield of fractured light. One was long and smooth, its hull silver blue and almost organic in design. Glowing sigils pulsed faintly across its surface. It drifted bleeding vapor from ruptured thrusters, shielding flickering in a sputtering dome. The other, was something else entirely. A jagged black vessel bristling with weapon ports and spine plating loomed above the wounded ship. Purple energy beams arced from its forward guns, hammering into the silver ship's failing shields with merciless precision. "That's not a drill," Hayes muttered, his voice grim. "That's a full-scale weapons platform." Tom's hands flew over his console. The distress calls coming from the silver one. They're transmitting on multiple frequencies. Now, wait. Core's translator just kicked in. The speakers crackled. "This is the Meridian carrying civilian refugees. Please, any vessel assistance required. Shields failing. Hull integrity critical. We cannot outrun." The message cut static, taking its place for a moment. Then a new voice burst through, deep, commanding, and cold. "This is the Dominion warship Subjugator. This matter does not concern your primitive species. Leave immediately or be annihilated." The crew froze. Even Linda, hands shaking slightly at her medbay console, looked up. "Thousands of life signs on that ship, Captain. Injured. Oxygen dropping. If we don't act soon..." "I know," Miller replied. He stood slowly, straightening his jacket. "Core," he said, "open a channel to both ships." A soft chime confirmed connection. "This is Captain James Miller of the Earth mining vessel Perseverance. We are responding to a recognized distress call as required by all maritime traditions, space or sea. I request the attacking vessel cease fire immediately and stand down." There was silence. Then a pulse of purple light lanced past the Perseverance's bow, close enough to rattle the entire ship. "Warning shot," Hayes said, gripping the edge of his console. "No," Miller said. "That was a threat." "Primitives do not give orders to the Dominion," the cold voice returned. "You will be destroyed with the others." Miller turned to his crew, no longer uncertain. Tommy barked, "Can we boost the mining lasers?" Tom's eyes widened. "We'd have to reconfigure them, power them up past safety thresholds. Last time we tried that, it cut through a 6-meter core sample like butter." "Do it. On it." Hayes prepped targeting. Linda, get the medbay ready for incoming casualties. Species unknown. Core analyze weak points in the attacking ship's structure. Core's holographic display lit up, scanning the subjugator in real time. Analysis complete. Hull strength moderate. Shield matrix unstable at ventral node junctions. Estimated effectiveness of repurposed mining lasers, 41%. Miller nodded. "Good enough." Captain Tom called, voice urgent. "Remember that weird crystal asteroid from last month? We recalibrated the laser beam's harmonics to get through it. I can do the same here, tune it to disrupt their hull frequency." Miller cracked a grim smile. "Make them regret ever picking on rock breakers." The Perseverance's engines flared as the ship shifted between the Meridian and the Dominion warship, shielding the crippled vessel behind its much sturdier hull. The Perseverance wasn't sleek. It wasn't fast. But it was built to survive asteroid strikes the size of skyscrapers, and right now that made it the biggest damn shield in the sector. Core's voice returned. "Modified mining laser operational. Ready to fire." Hayes looked to Miller. "They're going to fire again. Let them." And fire they did. A bolt of violet energy struck the Perseverance head-on, slamming into its reinforced hull. The ship bucked under the impact but held. Direct hit, Core reported. Hull integrity 94%. Minimal damage. "They didn't expect us to be built like a mountain," Tom chuckled. Miller stood tall on the bridge. "Send a message to all Earth mining vessels in the system," he said. "Tell them civilians in danger assistance welcome." Signal sent. Then in a low voice, barely above a whisper, Miller added, "Let's show them what miners do when someone needs help." From the darkness, the Perseverance's mining lasers flared to life beams of golden orange light, tuned not for profit but for protection. And somewhere far off in the silence of space, other lights began to stir. More ships were coming. Tools of war. The lights on the Perseverance's bridge dimmed as energy was rerouted to the modified mining lasers. Systems that once powered ore processors now fed capacitors meant to punch through steel rock, or in this case, Dominion armor. Tom Ward hovered over the console, sweat beating at his temples. Laser frequencies recalibrated. Harmonic resonance tuned to destabilize crystalline alloys. Should slice through their outer hull like a drill through ice, Hayes finished, eyes locked on the target display. "Let's hope they didn't expect that from a miner." Captain Miller stood at the center of the bridge, arms crossed, voice steady. "Core status on enemy ship. Dominion vessel preparing to fire. Charging main weapon." "Beat them to it," Miller snapped. "Fire." The Perseverance's mining laser surged forward with a roar of energy, brilliant orange light cutting through the vacuum like a blade. It struck the Dominion warship at a weak joint near the rear thruster cluster. Sparks flared. Hull plating peeled back. A small explosion bloomed along the subjugator's ventral side. Direct hit core confirmed. Localized structural damage. Weapon capacitors destabilized. The bridge erupted in cheers. Tom pumped a fist in the air. They're learning what happens when you mess with guys who can vaporize iron core asteroids. Hayes, ever the professional, grunted, "One good hit doesn't win a war." Which is why Miller said, "We're not doing this alone." A soft ping sounded. "New contact detected," Core announced. IFF confirms Earth's civilian mining vessel Deep Digger. The view screen shifted. A hulking shape emerged from the dark, wide-bodied, scarred from years in the belt, its hull patched with decades of field repairs and improvisation. On its side, a spray-painted slogan read, "If it moves, we avoid. If it fires, we drill." A voice cracked through the comms. "Perseverance, this is Captain Alvarez of the Deep Digger. Got your call. Brought our big drills?" "Need a hoe." Miller smiled. "Plenty." Behind the Deep Digger, more signatures blinked into view. The Rockhopper, Asteroid Breaker, Quarry Queen, Belt Runner. All vessels, all miners, all veterans of decades spent wrestling raw matter from the void. Not warships, but something better. Tom's console lit up. "Captain, we're receiving coordination requests. The other ships want targeting data. They're ready to retrofit their gear. Some already started." "Good," Miller said. "Let's arm the fleet." In the cargo bay, Tom led the charge. He and Core began rerouting shield emitters to function as magnetic defense fields. Cargo winches were converted into launch and retract nets. Mineral scanning beams, normally tuned for trace metals, were repurposed to scan the subjugator's weapon ports and identify stress points. Linda's medical bay transformed too, readying for triage, not mining injuries but war wounds. She sterilized gear-tested biocompatibility tools and pulled every first aid kit from storage. By the time the Dominion fired again, the Perseverance wasn't alone, and it wasn't just a mining ship anymore. It was a battle platform cobbled from rust grit and the will to fight. The subjugator, unprepared for resistance, faltered. Another beam from the Deep Digger sliced across its upper ridge. A net launched by Rockhopper caught a Dominion drone mid-flight and yanked it into its magnetic grapples. "Two down, more to go," Alvarez shouted over the comms. But the Dominion adapted quickly. "Enemy launching fighters," Core warned. 12 small craft inbound. Hayes cursed under his breath. "They're trying to swarm us." "Let them try," Miller replied. "Tom, get creative." Tom was already sprinting for the nearest access hatch, shouting orders to the cargo team. "I need the magnetic tethers online and synced to the hull plates. Redirect power from the ore separators. Let's make this thing stickier than a Venusian storm." One of the enemy fighters streaked toward the Perseverance. It dipped low, angling for a strafing run. Too close. Far too close. The moment it reached within 10 meters, the magnetic field grabbed it. The Dominion fighter slammed against the hull like a bug against a windshield, engines sputtering trapped. "Beautiful," Tom breathed. Soon other fighters found themselves ensnared in similar traps or worse. The Quarry Queen had reprogrammed its auto-arms, the ones normally used to snatch mineral-rich debris, to grab and fling enemy drones like toys. A spinning arm caught a Dominion craft mid-flight and hurled it into an asteroid. Boom! Linda's voice crackled through. "Captain Meridian's watching. They've started copying our magnet trick with their own hull systems." "Let them," Miller said. "Let everyone watch." The Dominion warship reeled. They were bleeding ship's drones and dignity to a swarm of what should have been glorified construction workers. But that was the problem with assuming someone's tools made them weak, because the people wielding them were human. Miners' armada. The Perseverance held the line. Between the Dominion warship Subjugator and the wounded Meridian, it floated like a metal boulder planted in the void, unglamorous, heavily scarred, and absolutely immovable. But now it wasn't alone. From every corner of the belt, ships were arriving rust-shelled, overworked, and held together by welding patches and pure grit. There were no military formations, no command structure, just a growing crowd of space-hardened miners who knew how to make a broken system work with duct tape and prayer. They came in droves: the Rock Breaker, the Belt Widow, the Planet Cracker. Even the notoriously antisocial Dust Worm crawled out from its lonely trench orbiting Neptune. Each one tuned their systems on the fly. Each one added something unique to the fight. Captain Core said fleet strength, 12 mining vessels, 6 more en route. All are modifying equipment independently. Miller watched as sparks and energy pulses lit the dark like fireflies. The Star Digger had turned its ore processors into shield generators using electromagnetic waves meant for sorting platinum to deflect incoming plasma. The Deep Digger had taken its rotary asteroid drills and turned them into spinning cannons capable of tearing through fighter hulls. The Planet Cracker wasn't even subtle about it. It simply launched asteroids from its cargo bay as kinetic weapons. On the Perseverance's bridge, Hayes let out a low whistle. "We've got ourselves a damn fleet." Tom chimed in over comms. "Not just a fleet, a workshop. These guys are inventing a new type of warfare in real time." Linda's voice came next. "Refugees are stabilizing. They've rerouted oxygen from damaged sections. Life support holding." "Good," Miller said. "Let's make sure it stays that way." The Dominion tried to adjust. More fighters launched. More concentrated blasts targeted the Perseverance and its growing circle of allies. But nothing went as expected. Their weapons designed to pierce military shielding found themselves baffled by variable density fields created from ore separators. Their fighters trained to outmaneuver sleek interceptors got caught in mining nets or slammed into magnetic fields. One drone veered toward the rock hopper, only to be swallowed by a retractable cargo arm that clamped it like a bear trap and flung it into the side of the subjugator. Hayes laughed. "We're not just holding them, Captain. We're embarrassing them." Miller watched the battle unfold, awe blooming behind his calm expression. They came expecting a war. They got a Union strike. The comms exploded with banter. "Dustworm here. Got one stuck to my hull. Anyone want a souvenir?" Rockbreaker reporting. "Converted our secondary drills into oscillating cutters. Just opened a panel in their flank." Mineral Queen, "We've magnetized a chain of asteroids. Gonna start swinging them like wrecking balls." "Copy that," Miller said. "Target structural weaknesses near the ventral ribs. Make them feel it." On board the Meridian, the refugees watched in stunned silence. A soft message pinged across the shared channel. "We have never seen combat like this. You use machines designed to build, to defend. It is beautiful." Linda wiped her eyes at the console. "They're copying our tricks now. Their engineers are rerouting cooling systems into makeshift barriers. Even their children are watching." Miller's voice came low and steady. "Let them learn." He stepped toward the viewport, looking out at the chaos and creation unfolding. These weren't warships. These were workhorses. They had no tactical training, no weapons licenses, no command authority. But they had purpose. And when humans had purpose, the universe had a habit of learning something new. Another Dominion barrage slammed into the Perseverance. The ship rocked, but its hull designed to survive asteroid impacts barely groaned. Minimal damage, core reported. Armor integrity 89%. Hayes grinned. "They thought we were soft targets. Turns out we're harder than the damn rocks we mine." Miller nodded, "and smarter." Then came the moment that shifted everything. From deep space, 3 new vessels dropped out of speed drive, their engines flaring. But these weren't mining ships. These were Dominion reinforcements. Tom's voice was sharp. "New hostiles, big ones. Captain, we're gonna get swarmed." Miller turned to core. "Time until they're in range. 2 minutes. Weapons charged. Formation tightening." Hayes muttered, "This might be where it ends." No, Miller said, his eyes steel. "This is where it begins." He opened a fleet-wide channel, voice clear and calm. "All mining vessels tighten formation around the Meridian. Repurpose anything and everything. We've faced worse odds than this on collapsing mine shafts. Use your drills, your shields, your damn lunch trays if you have to. This isn't about firepower, it's about holding the line." A silence. Then, Planet Cracker copies. Dustworm ready. Belt Widow locked in. Let's teach them how miners fight. Dozens of ships moved as one. Not in perfect military symmetry, but in something deeper, familiar. They locked into the kind of formation born not from tactics, but from years of working together in space, guiding massive asteroids into place, carving through planetary crusts, rescuing comrades from cave-ins. And when the Dominion reinforcements arrived, they didn't meet a fleet. They met a wall of sparks metal, innovation, and something their empire had never planned for: human stubbornness. The turning point. The Dominion reinforcements surged forward, flanking their damaged warship like wolves circling a wounded prey. Purple lances of energy lit the darkness, tearing through the void with surgical precision. But what they hit wasn't helpless. It was ready. "Firing solutions locked," Hayes reported. "We've mapped their targeting patterns and adapted. Their tech is brutal but predictable." "Like a drill," Miller murmured. "Fast, strong, but only in one direction." He leaned forward. "Let's hit them where they don't see it coming." Across the fleet, miners responded not with military protocol, but with grit and imagination. On the deep digger, Oyen stood amidst a chaos of improvised circuitry, sweat glistening on his brow in the low light. His hands danced over touchscreens and repurposed interfaces, rerouting sonic pulses originally designed to fracture dense ore into tightly focused blasts. Captain Tom shouted through the comm, "I've synced the pulse generators. We're going to shake them from the inside." Miller's voice crackled back. "Do it. Shake them like you're cracking the heart of Jupiter." The first sonic pulse launched. It hit the Dominion warship's flank with an invisible thunderclap. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the enemy ship shuddered. Panels buckled. Sections of outer plating cracked and tore free, ripped apart not by impact, but by internal resonance. Hayes grinned. "How do you like that? Bet your shield engineers never tested for deep space mining waves." The other mining ships followed suit. The Quarry Queen funneled its scanner arrays into a narrow beam, pinpointing weak joints. The Mineral Queen launched asteroids wrapped in magnetic nets, disabling fighters mid-flight. The Dustworm unleashed drills that spun so fast they formed plasma halos, carving through enemy armor like butter on a skillet. It was chaos. It was genius. And it was working. The Dominion fleet, engineered for dominance, had never encountered warfare like this: irregular, unpredictable, constantly evolving. Every time they adjusted, the miners changed the game. Linda's voice came over comms. "Captain, the Meridian is regaining life support. They say they've copied our magnetic fields and pulse emitters. Their people are safe, for now." "Then let's make sure it stays that way," Miller replied. Suddenly, Core's voice rang out across the bridge. "Alert, enemy vessel deploying boarding craft. Estimated intercept, 45 seconds. Hayes slammed his fist into the console. "They're trying to take us from the inside." Tom Miller barked, "What have we got in the cargo bay?" "Auto arms, heavy grapples, magnetic tethers, a couple high-torque stabilizers, and a half-ton of processed nickel ore. Get creative." Tom didn't hesitate. Within moments, the Perseverance's cargo bay transformed into a death trap. The first Dominion boarding craft that breached the hull was met with a giant claw normally used to secure asteroid chunks that crushed it mid-dock like a tin can. The second managed to slip through only to be magnetically tethered to the outer hull and shredded by a modified ore grinder. "This is nuts," Tom shouted. "I love it." More fighters fell into similar traps, snagged mid-dive, yanked into mineral beams, or simply grabbed by cargo arms and thrown into nearby rocks. On the bridge, Miller watched the tactical screen shift. The balance was tipping. What began as survival was turning into defiance. What began as defiance was turning into victory. Then came the turning point, the message. From the Meridian, "They're retreating." Miller stood silent for a heartbeat. Retreating. The Dominion didn't retreat. Not ever. But now, faced with jury-rigged tools wielded by madmen in patch suits, they were starting to realize this wasn't just resistance. This was humanity. And it was not backing down. Core confirmed the movement. Enemy flagship powering down main cannon, fighters withdrawing to outer perimeter, shield energy dropping. Hayes looked stunned. They don't know how to respond. They came expecting primitives. They got engineers with nothing to lose. And then the final blow came not from firepower, but from presence. Across the view screen, more ships dropped from Speed Drive Earth Defense Force vessels. Sleek, military, loaded to the teeth. But their arrival wasn't the surprise. The real shock was the military ships didn't take over. They joined in, and they copied the miners. Linda gasped, "Look at their shield matrices. They're using our magnetic deflection algorithms." Hayes blinked. They integrated mining-grade plasma pulse modulations into their cannons. Tom laughed over a comms. "Those are my torque settings on a warship. This is insane." Miller smiled, pride swelling in his chest. "This," he said quietly, "is how we win. Not by overpowering them, but by making them realize they can't understand us." A final Dominion transmission crackled through the channel. "This is impossible. You are miners, not soldiers. How did you?" Miller replied calmly. "Because we adapt. Because we stand together. And because when someone needs help, we show up." Military arrival. The stars shifted. Out of the darkness, dozens of sleek gunmetal ships burst from Speed Drive Earth Defense Force vessels, gleaming with polished hulls and bristling with plasma arrays. Their arrival sent a ripple across every screen. Captain Core announced EDF fleet arriving. Flagship identified, Stellar Guardian designation, Admiral Wilson. Miller stood straighter, instinctively adjusting his collar. "Put him through." A crisp voice filled the bridge, edged with authority, but lined with surprise. This is Admiral Wilson of the EDF Stellar Guardian. Captain Miller, what in God's name have you people done? Miller allowed himself a grin, improvised. Admiral Wilson exhaled audibly. We've been watching your feeds for the past 15 minutes. We didn't think we'd be arriving to this. On the tactical screen, the EDF ships spread in a formation, but something was different. Their shields flickered with unfamiliar energy, signatures modulated irregularly, their weapons charged with strange frequency pulses. Hayes blinked. They're copying us. Tom's voice broke in from engineering. Admiral, are your ships using magnetic deflectors tuned to ore separation bands? Affirmative, Wilson replied. We analyzed your tactics en route. Your mining vessels created the most effective combat adaptation we've seen since the Swarm Wars. Linda chuckled. I guess we're trendsetters now. Wilson's tone shifted. We're not here to take over. We're here to support. You've already won the heart of the battle, Captain. Let's finish it together. Across the fleet, both civilian and military cheers rang out. For the first time in recorded galactic history, civilian ingenuity and military power were moving as one. The Dominion, however, didn't seem impressed. Their commander's voice returned to the comm, full of venom and disbelief. So, the real warriors finally arrive. This changes nothing. You are still primitives backed by tin-plated soldiers. Admiral Wilson's voice was calm. Primitives, I just saw a cargo hauler turn an asteroid into a railgun. Sit down, Commander. You're outclassed and outmatched. The Dominion fired. It was desperate, wild. A full assault of beam weaponry and fighter drones aimed at both miners and EDF ships. But the response was immediate. The Star Digger flared its shield, the same one made from a converted ore processor, and absorbed the brunt of the fire. EDF cruisers countered with synchronized pulse weapons, using mining ship telemetry to target structural weaknesses. The Planet Cracker launched a salvo of magnetized asteroids caught in tractor beams and flung like cannonballs. An EDF destroyer fired a plasma torpedo through the asteroid trajectory, causing it to explode midair like shrapnel across enemy shields. Chaos, precision, art. Wilson came back over comms. Captain Miller, your fleet has a gift. I propose we combine strike patterns. Your miners soften, we hit hard, your tools, our tech. Agreed, Miller said. But make no mistake, these miners, they're not support. They're the ones who showed us what's possible. The Stellar Guardian maneuvered beside the Perseverance, the contrast between sleek military design and rugged industrial function stark, but they moved in perfect rhythm. Hayes called out. Firing patterns synced. Let's make some noise. On Miller's signal, 20 mining ships and 12 warships opened fire simultaneously. Sonic pulses, ore cannons, plasma bolts, laser drills, all converging into a symphony of destruction. The subjugator's hull cracked. Its shield shattered like glass under a hammer. The Dominion fighters scattered. And then, silence. The Dominion commander returned, but now his voice lacked rage. It held fear. We surrender. On the bridge, no one cheered. Not yet. Wilson's voice came through cold and commanding. Your vessel will be escorted to Earth space. You will answer for attacking civilians under protection of the Terran Accord. Hayes raised a brow. He actually said it. Said what Linda asked. That we're Terrans, that we matter. Miller stepped forward, watching the enemy ships power down. We showed them, he said softly, not just who we are, but what we're capable of. The EDF began securing the area, scanning the disabled Dominion vessel, and arranging extraction protocols for the Meridian. But the story wasn't over yet, not even close. Because as the stars settled and the battlefield grew quiet, new ships arrived, not military, not Dominion, alien. Elegant vessels of unfamiliar design, diplomatic cruisers, observation crafts, even trade freighters. And all of them had one thing in common. They came to watch, to witness the impossible, to see a species no one believed in take down a galactic power with nothing but repurposed drills and a sense of moral duty. Linda looked at the screen and whispered, "The galaxy's watching us now." Miller nodded. Good, maybe they'll learn something. Behind him, Kor's voice returned. Captain, message from the Meridian. They say they wish to formally thank the mining fleet first, before the military. Hayes blinked. That might be the first time in galactic history that a war was won by a fleet of working-class heroes. Miller smiled. That's humanity for you. Humanity's strength. The aftermath of the battle felt unreal. The Dominion warship, once the symbol of oppression and fear, now floated powerless, scarred, silent, and humbled. Around it, a ring of mining ships and Earth military vessels held steady formation, not out of threat, but out of vigilance. The Perseverance powered down its mining lasers. The war was over, but something else was just beginning. Captain Miller stood on the bridge, staring out the viewport as more alien vessels arrived, each one distinct in design, culture, and purpose. Their arrival wasn't hostile. They came in peace. They came to understand. Captain Core announced, "The Stellar Guardian requests your presence aboard. High-priority meeting. Civilian and military representatives will attend." Miller turned, glanced at his crew, then nodded. "Prep the shuttle. Let's go see what all this noise started." The meeting room aboard the Stellar Guardian dwarfed anything the Perseverance had. A sleek, polished chamber with soft lighting and transparent walls that looked out across the stars. At the head of the long table stood Admiral Wilson and a tall, silver-skinned alien wearing flowing robes, the Meridian's commander. Captain Miller, the alien said, bowing slightly, "I am First Speaker Ron. Before anything else, on behalf of the Meridian and its thousands of refugees, you have our eternal thanks." Miller bowed respectfully. "We only did what needed to be done." "Perhaps," Ron said, "but what you've done changes everything." The room quieted. Ron took a deep breath. "There is something you must know. Your species was not unknown to us." Hayes, standing beside Miller, raised an eyebrow. "You've seen Earth before," observed Ron, clarified. "Since your first steps into space, it is standard practice among older civilizations. We monitor developing species, assessing technological progression and socio-political stability." Miller crossed his arms. "So we were a science project." Ron didn't flinch. "A test. One that until today most believed you had failed." Linda frowned. "Because we didn't build warships." "Because you didn't prioritize war," Ron said. "Other species, upon reaching orbit, turned immediately to weaponization. But Earth, your first space stations were built for research. Your early ships designed for exploration, for mining, for peaceful development." Tom chuckled from behind. "So, we got downgraded for not being violent enough." "In a sense," Ron replied. "The Galactic Council deemed you too gentle to endure. They delayed contact. They feared your extinction, or worse, your corruption." And now Miller asked. Ron gestured toward the viewport, toward the countless alien vessels still watching, hovering in silent witness. "Now they know they were wrong." He stepped forward. "You fought not with weapons, but with tools. You defended not for conquest, but out of compassion. Your military did not override your civilians, they supported them. In thousands of years, no race has demonstrated such adaptable, synchronized behavior between worker and warrior. You turned a mining fleet into a rescue force, a defensive wall, a symbol." He turned to Wilson. "And your military, rather than scoff, learned, enhanced, integrated, that is, unprecedented." Admiral Wilson nodded. "That's the Terran way. Innovation through necessity, and unity when it counts." Ron smiled faintly. "Which brings us to the present. My report to the Council is already transmitting across diplomatic channels. Other species are watching, listening, and some already copying." Hayes gave a low whistle. "So we're influencers now." Linda smirked. "Galactic trendsetters." Tom looked thoughtful. "They didn't need to see firepower. They needed to see something human." Ron's expression turned serious. "And they did. What they saw was resilience, creativity, unity without command, purpose without ambition, power without cruelty." Miller stayed silent for a moment, then said quietly, "We didn't do any of this for attention. We did it because someone needed help." "Exactly," Ron said. "That's why you are now essential." He turned back to the stars. "The Dominion has ruled through intimidation for centuries. But today their ships were crippled by ore scanners and magnet claws. Their pride shattered not by a super weapon, but by problem-solving welders and exhausted engineers." He looked over his shoulder. "You showed the galaxy that strength is not measured by megatons, but by will." 3 days later, the Perseverance was back in orbit around a quiet asteroid field. The drills buzzed, the cargo arms moved. Life had returned to normal, but nothing was the same. Alien ships now orbited nearby, watching, learning. Messages flowed daily, some requesting training, others asking for blueprints. A few simply thanked them for giving hope that even the small could matter. Linda looked at the small plaque now mounted near the medbay. "To those who stood when no one else would. Galactic Council." Hayes passed by and nodded toward it. "Not bad for a bunch of rockhounds." Miller chuckled. "Not bad at all." Core chimed in, Captain Earth Command has transmitted an official request. The Council wishes to establish a human-led rapid response program to help distressed species using integrated civilian and military tech. They've asked you to head it. Tom whooped, "You're gonna be famous." But Miller just stared out the viewport, coffee in hand, as the asteroid turned lazily below. "Tell them," he said, "I've got rocks to drill. If they want a proper teacher, send them to Captain Rodriguez on the Deep Digger. She's better at breaking things and explaining them." Core paused. "They specifically requested you." Miller shook his head. "We're not legends, we're just people who did our jobs when it mattered." He took a sip of his coffee. "And if the galaxy needs that kind of lesson, they're welcome to watch." Just another day in space. The asteroid spun slowly beneath them, its surface rich in nickel and iron, exactly what they'd come for. The Perseverance hovered in stable orbit, mining arms extended drills humming gently as they bored into ancient stone. From the outside, it looked like any other workday. No banners, no speeches, no horns of victory. Just the rhythm of labor in space. Mining scan complete, Core reported. Ore quality matches standard parameters. Estimated yield 8.4 metric tons. "Nice," Tom said from engineering, kicking his feet up. "Back to boring old productivity." Linda smiled from the medbay. "After the week we've had, I'll take boring." Hayes, sipping black coffee at the console, raised an eyebrow. "Coffee's hot. No magnetic tether malfunctions. No boarding attempts. No planetary scale distress signals. Is this what peace feels like?" Captain Miller leaned against the console rail, watching the stars through the viewport. "Feels like home." But even in peace, things had changed. Ships drifted near by alien designs, sleek and unfamiliar. Observation craft, research vessels. A few even bore the symbols of species Miller couldn't name, each one there for one purpose: to watch, to learn, and perhaps to understand. Captain Core said, "Incoming transmission from Earth Command." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear it." A familiar voice echoed across the bridge. "Captain Miller, this is Director Langston. Another alien vessel is requesting permission to observe Terran mining operations, particularly emergency repurposing procedures." Hayes laughed. "That's the 12th request this month." Tom groaned dramatically. "Do I have to give another demo on how to convert a cargo stabilizer into an anti-boarding field?" "Yes," Miller said, and smiled this time. "Ugh, fame is exhausting." Linda's console lit up with a soft ping. "Update from the refugee colony," she said. "One of the families we helped, their kids just got accepted into Earth's xenobiology program. First generation, first chance." Everyone paused, then smiled. "They say," Linda added, "they want to understand the species that saved them." Miller looked back to the stars. "Good," he said. "Understanding's a better weapon than any plasma cannon." Out in the black, other ships worked nearby, not military vessels. Other human miners, old friends and new allies. The Rockhopper, the Mineral Queen, even the Dustworm. Some of them carried alien passengers, now volunteers learning Terran techniques. Some even added their own. Adaptation had become contagious. On the view screen, the EDF Stellar Guardian glided past. Its hull was now lined with hybrid plating, part Terran alloy, part magnetic shielding system, based on Perseverance's mining field mod. Message from Admiral Wilson, Core said. He says the Dominion signed the final treaty. Still mad they lost to power tools. The crew burst out laughing. "Tell him," Miller said, chuckling, "we'll send him a wrench for his trophy case." Linda grinned. "Or a commemorative drill bit." "Titanium plated," Tom added. "Best kind." The laughter faded, replaced with a quiet peace. The kind that settles in your chest when the world has stopped spinning, when you know you did something that mattered. And now, you just keep doing what you've always done. Captain Core interrupted gently. "Your presence is requested at next week's Galactic Council Summit. Topic: establishing a human-led emergency response initiative based on adaptive mining logistics." Tom whistled. "Again, they really want you to be the guy." Miller shook his head. "I'm not a politician. I'm just a guy who didn't like the sound of a distress call being ignored." Hayes leaned over. "They specifically said they want the captain who turned drills into diplomacy." Miller snorted. "Tell them to ask Captain Alvarez. She's got better grammar and scarier eyebrows." Core paused. "They say only you showed them humanity's true strength." Miller took a long sip from his mug. "Then tell them I've got drills to manage rocks to crack and people to take care of. If they want to know who we are, they can watch us work." Outside, in the quiet of the belt, alien vessels adjusted course. Cameras activated, data logs began recording. The Perseverance's mining beams lit up again, cutting cleanly into a slab of iron-streaked asteroid. Robotic arms moved in concert. Conveyor lines rumbled softly as raw materials flowed into storage. Business as usual. And yet, not quite. This wasn't just a mining ship anymore. It was a symbol, not of power, not of dominance, but of ingenuity, of compassion, of unity in the face of impossible odds, of what it means to be human. And as the asteroid split neatly in half, Hayes said it best. You know what the best part of this is? What Linda asked. No medals, no parades, just us, back at it. Miller smiled. Exactly how it should be. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the stars. Sometimes the biggest changes in the galaxy come from people who never stop doing their job. He raised his mug. To just another day in space. And the Perseverance carried on, like it always had.